Now,
on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
7:36 on this Monday morning. Good Martin Luther King Day to one and all. We also have our first snow in like 2 years. It's happening right now. If you got to go out, if you've got to drive, it's ugly. We're getting reports. Friend of the program, Carrie Lucas, was out. And so what did she say, Julie Gunlock? How many?
Yeah, she said, let me find her message here. She said that she was driving and she saw a ton of accidents all around the Seven Corners area. That's in Virginia. So be careful.
Be careful. Be careful. And Jamie Whitten's got you covered every 10 minutes, of course, on the fives. Also coming up at 8:35, we'll check in with our friend Dr. Marty McCary at Johns Hopkins about the masks we're starting to see pop up left and right. That's all coming up. But first, that's right. It's time. Forget about the talking and the analyzing and the predicting and the polling. It's time for some voting or some caucusing, I suppose. And joining us live from Iowa, he's the host of The Drive with Brian Wilson on our sister station WTN in Nashville. He is the aforementioned Brian Wilson. Morning, Brian.
Hey, good morning to you, Larry. It is a balmy minus 14 degrees right now here in Des Moines, Iowa. Larry, it is so cold.
How cold is it?
It's colder than Bill Hess's heart. That's what it is.
Oh, a gratuitous slam on our fun-loving, evil program director. Brian. The temperature, of course, other than us radio hosts just whining about how cold it is, which is sort of our God-given right, it also could very well affect the turnout, right? Because caucuses, as everybody knows, is not just showing up whenever you want and voting. You got to get out there, you got to show up, and then you got to stay for a couple of hours at your caucus place. What are people saying about the turnout prospects here for the candidates?
You know, you talk to people. Of course, I went to events yesterday where people are motivated to get out in it and go see a candidate, Nikki Haley or Vivek or DeSantis, or there was a rally for Trump as well in Indianola, and people show up, but those people are motivated, and I think though that it's not going to be that big a deal. People up here are used to cold weather. I mean, not usually this cold, but they're used to cold weather. They're a hardy bunch. It will probably suppress turnout somewhat, but I don't think a great deal. And it could be over pretty quick tonight. The expectation, if everything goes according to some of the polling data, it's going to be a very good night for Donald Trump. The question is who comes in second. And I think there's a developing story about Nikki Haley that's worthy of mention.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about that. There is a rumor, big thread on Twitter talking about how this is already arranged, that Nikki's going to be his running mate, that she will be second in Iowa, and then soon after they will announce she is his running mate, she will endorse him. And that's partly explains the attacks on Vivek this weekend. Tell us how you feel about what you're hearing there.
Well, I'm not so sure. I was at an event last night with Nikki Haley, and she's coming on pretty strong in her attacks on Trump and says, look, he was the right president for the time. And, of course, she was a part of that administration, so she has to say that. But she says, but, wherever he goes, bring the crazy comes along, and we could do with a lot less of that. And so I don't see that. But, she is going to be the beneficiary probably of a lot of the votes that would have gone to Chris Christie. Probably won't get her across the threshold for a win here in Iowa, but she's put a lot of money into New Hampshire, and she's, according to some polling, doing fairly well there. And with Chris Christie out, and he had about 10-12% of the vote wrapped up in New Hampshire, if she were to pick that up, she could come out of here with a second maybe, and then go on to New Hampshire to potentially win if things go well for her. And then it becomes a question about Ron DeSantis. And many people are looking at Ron DeSantis and wondering, you spend a lot of money, you don't seem to be getting traction in Iowa or New Hampshire. How long are you going to stay in? He says he's going to South Carolina, but, a lot of people say, well, that's what they would always say. You never want to admit just before a caucus that you're about to pull out. So the question is, will he get out, and then where would that support go? And then if you got Christie people out, and you got Ron DeSantis people out potentially by the time you get to New Hampshire, then it becomes a much more competitive race. But again, some of these polls that you see around the country, Donald Trump's leading by 30, 40, even 50 points in some states.
Brian Wilson's our guest from WTN. He's out in Des Moines right now covering the caucus. Brian, we've known each other a dozen years now. Sometimes I can be contrarian. I don't know if you remember that about me.
I've heard that.
So forgive me, because I don't want to sort of burst all the cable news bubbles here, because everyone's there and you're on the ground, and God knows WTN spent good money to have you there. But as our friend Derek Hunter points out at townhall.com, Ted Cruz, Rick Santorum, and Mike Huckabee are the last three winners of contested Republican caucuses in Iowa. In other words, does this even matter? I mean, even if obviously if Trump loses, that would be a huge story, but Iowa doesn't tend to make a big difference anymore, does it?
Well, I think it is. Let me just put it this way. We hear from the politicians, and we hear from the pundits, and we hear from the pollsters. Yeah. This is the first time where people actually get up and speak. Iowa can be contrarian, you're right. But I mean, Donald Trump says he's going to win by 50 points. He's going to get at least 50% of the vote.
Yeah, last poll showed him at 48, which is the best a Republican has done in a while.
Yeah. So I mean, it's going to be, if everything goes as planned, going to be a pretty good night for him. I think probably Nikki Haley comes in second, and then it's a question who comes in third and fourth. Is it DeSantis or is it Vivek? I went to Vivek's thing yesterday. Let me just say this about Vivek.
Yeah.
His numbers are not showing up on the polls very well, but I wouldn't be surprised if he outperforms his poll expectations a bit.
Oh, all right.
He's done the full Chuck Grassley, which is to say he's visited all 99 counties in Iowa, not once but twice.
Yeah,
and
that's amazing.
He's picked up on a big local issue, which has to do with somebody wanting to build a pipeline across Iowa and use eminent domain to gain the land for it. It's very controversial, and he's been hitting that. Nobody else has really been hitting that. He had a pretty feisty turnout yesterday. I was at an event with him early. I don't think he's going to win, but I think he might exceed expectations somewhat. Right. But again, the real question is, can anybody beat Donald Trump at this point, given the polling data which shows him so far ahead in most of these states? The one exception to that is it's a lot tighter in New Hampshire, where Nikki Haley has spent a ton of money.
The fact that the big storyline coming out of Iowa is who's going to finish second, I think, also speaks volumes. Real fast, Brian, what's your favorite deep-fried food on a stick you have enjoyed there while in Iowa?
Well, I didn't do any but there's a pork tenderloin sandwich, which if you are from the South, you know a little something about something called chicken fried steak.
Oh, sure.
Which is neither chicken or it is steak, but it's fried.
It's definitely fried.
It's fried. It's chicken. It's fried like a chicken. And here they have a pork tenderloin sandwich, which is the real delicacy. The bun is the regular size bun. The meat is about the size of a hubcap. It's astonishing.
Exactly.
Well, that's fantastic. I like that. Although if I remember, the regular size bun thing would kind of throw me off.
It's
I like big
carb.
buns.
It's low carb.
All right. Thank
you like
Brian.
big buns, you cannot lie. I know.
There it is. I knew there'd be a Sir Mix-a-Lot pickup there. Thank you, Brian. Stay warm. All right.
Okay. It's too late for that. But thank you, Larry. Good talking to you.
We will be checking out your coverage on WTN there in Nashville. It's 7:45. WMAL traffic and weather.